Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are excited to have our secondary school advising overview with all of you this evening. And thank you. And Charlene is going to be taking over the presentation. We are recording tonight, so don't worry. We'll be sharing a link with you after the event. And if you have any questions at any time during this, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and share them with us. Over to you, Charlene.
Thanks so much, Jen. I really appreciate it. And I'd also like to give a little shout out to Jen, who's our head of product at Carroll, because without her, we would not be here this evening. And of course, thank you to all of you who have joined us this evening, whether you are coming from your kitchens, living rooms, office, car, hockey practice, it could be anything. So we appreciate it very, very much. And especially coming off such a busy time. We have, you've just come off conferences. We have the new term that started yesterday, and here we are the first day of spring. So again, thank you. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Carroll's secondary school advising team. I am Charlene Kometz, Director of Secondary School Advising at Carroll, and I have had the privilege of being at Carroll for 14 years. And I'd like to introduce my colleagues who make up this true team, Cece McNally and Francie Fenton. Please say hello.
Hi, my name is Francie Fenton, and I'm in my second year. I work in the Carroll Upper campus in Wayland.
Hi, and I'm Cece McNally, and I am going into my 10th year, and I'm on the middle school campus.
Thank you both very much. Our goal as a secondary school advising team at Carroll is truly to provide all families with the support they need in order to find the right fit school for their child. And as we begin this evening, I'm going to go over some topics that we're going to be touching upon. But before we begin, a wise person, you know who you are, suggested that perhaps a story to just like open this up would be a good idea. And truthfully, when I think back of collectively, the incredible families and students that we've worked with, the stories are abundant. But I did want to share a story, and I feel that the takeaway for this story is being open to surprise. And I'm going to go back a few years, and this story actually translates over years, and you'll know what I mean as we go through this journey and as we go through the presentation. So to have a recap, so we have a family that I worked with, and they started the journey just like you, came to the event, went through the process, and let's go into all the way to December. And they've narrowed down their list of schools, and they shared that with our team, and they have made some huge adjustments. They thought that they're going to stay close to home, but they're going to expand the search suddenly, being very open-minded. They got their applications in. It was just a wonderful partnership. In January, the family said, I just want to let you know, we know that if this one school works out, we know where our student is going to go. They know, like, we just feel in our heart, if this works out, it would just be the perfect fit. It's like, that's wonderful. Wow, you've done all the work. It's great. And let's just see what the next 6 weeks bring. March 10th rolls around, which you'll all learn is kind of a big day for those interested in independent and boarding schools and those with applications. March 10th comes, and the family received some wonderful news. The student was overjoyed. They not only received some great school option opportunities and offers, but the school that they had shared with me, they were really interested in, also offered this opportunity. And so in completing the process, they went to revisit days. And now we're fast forwarding another month. So essentially 13 months from now. And the decision date is April 10th for most schools. Again, those you're applying to. And the family called me on April 9th and said, you're not going to believe this. We are so surprised. We're so surprised. We went to the revisit days. and we stepped on this one campus, and our student looked at us and said, after a little bit on the campus, and they had a feeling too, this is where I belong. And truly, wholeheartedly, this is where I belong. My friends are going to this other school that I loved, but I know this is where I belong. And this student was the oldest of 3 siblings, of which the others weren't at Carroll. One ended up coming, and subsequently they all ended up at this school. But really, the moral of this story, and the reason I tell the story to open up this this evening, is that this year is filled with growth and opportunities and learning. And the growth happens all kinds of ways. It's going to happen academically. It's going to happen for yourselves. It's going to happen socially, emotionally. It might look different for every student, but what we're going to ask you this evening is to be open to the surprise of all kinds of things in this journey. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story, and I could go on with 10 other stories that replicate this, for the student who went to public school and the student who's at a technical school or a day school. Just be open to the surprise. So why don't we move on to the agenda? All right, tonight's agenda. The main goal for this evening is to support you. We are looking for you to walk away from this evening, hopefully feeling 3 things. One, that you've enjoyed the evening. I promise I'll be timely. And we will be timely. The second is that you walk away feeling informed. We want you to leave this evening and feel like you learned something that you didn't know before about secondary school advising at Carroll or the process. And third, we want you to leave knowing that you have resources. And the resources are not only the resources that you're going to find with Cece, Francie, and myself, but they extend to the incredible faculty that your kids have now as upper school 8th grade students, as 7th grade students, but then in just a few short months, your 8th grade teaching team, your 9th grade teaching team, and the administration. So we rely on them, and we want this to be a partnership together. And so what we're going to do is go over how this is going to look in terms of timing and process. We're also going to go over secondary school advising's role and how we're going to support your family over the next 13 months. We will take a time to do a little bit of, as I said, there's going to, or as Jen said, there's going to be some questions that you're able to ask online, I believe in the chat, or is it in the Q&A? And somebody want to let me know?
It's in the Q&A.
Terrific. So the Q&A, I just want to make sure I send you to the right direction. And then I'm going to hand over the presentation to Cece McNally, who's going to go over high school options and support models. She's also, we have a comprehensive slide on the public school process as it relates to the IEP and 504s, but it's a lot of information. So she's going to give a condensed version on that. But we also have a slide specifically for the public school process. And we're also going to have Francie take it over and speak about Carroll Upper School. And Francie works with our 9th grade students matriculating from the 9th grade program at Carroll Upper. And then we're going to have an opportunity for more questions, answer some of your questions. And also we have collected some frequently asked questions by parents over the years, and then talk about some of the resources that are going to be available. So I will, again, try to be very timely. We have allotted an hour and a half, and the goal is to maybe have this done in approximately an hour. That will give even more time to have some questions answered. Let's see. So this is how you may be feeling right now. You might be feeling, oh my goodness, we just arrived at Carroll. We just found Carroll. You could be a 7th grade student who just started in September. You could be a 6th grade student, or a Carroll Upper 8th grade family who just arrived in September, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, we're just like on a roll now, and now we have to think of this next step. Don't worry, that's why we're here for you. You could also be feeling like, all right, hand me the paperwork. I am ready to go. I know where I'm headed. I just want that partner alongside. You also might be a family that says, I'm not sure we know what we want next. And that is also part of the journey, is to talk about what is of interest to your family and to your student, and what does it look like in terms of support and all kinds of pieces. Let's see, another way you might be feeling is, okay, my child thinks they want to go to boarding school, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Well, fortunately, we have a lot of expertise in this area, where feelings might not always be on the same path initially. And how are we going to, again, work together so that at the end, your family, your student, you're all feeling good about the direction you're heading. Or you might be feeling like, I'm not really sure how much support my child will need if they're not at Carroll. And again, our partnership over the next 13 months is doing a deep dive into discovering all of that with you. So we know there's a lot of feelings going on. In terms of the roadmap of the process, you know, as I looked at this slide many times, and we all collaborated on this, again, there's, I think, 11 little stops, but there's 13 months. And something you'll be receiving later is some information on even more specific timelines in terms of months and due dates, et cetera. But this is just a broad overview of the roadmap you're going to be taking. So congratulate yourselves tonight, because you made it. You're at the high school, you know, overview meeting. So this is just a check mark on that first box. And for those families who are unable to make it tonight, we understand. Again, this is being recorded, and we will have it up on the secondary school advising pages shortly. So following this evening, you will be receiving a personalized email from your secondary school advisor that you will be working with, and you will have a parent questionnaire specific to you. You will submit, it says, the parent questionnaire, and what you'll actually be doing is returning that parent questionnaire to your secondary school advisor. And then from that point, you're going to be scheduling a meeting with your secondary school advisor in either the spring or the fall. In between this, you're going to get some information tonight. You may want to be making some phone calls or scheduling some updated neuropsych testing for your child. And part of the parent questionnaire is, one component is, has your child had any updated testing recently, and what's the date? And we'll talk about that timeline and what that means and what schools are looking for, et cetera. But that's something that could be happening in the next month or two. Following the meeting with our office, potentially, you would be researching schools. Now, there might be some families, and I had this last year, where a family said, you know what, let's meet in the fall. There's some schools I'm going to look at, and we're going to spend some time over the spring going to some open houses and doing some drive-bys. We're going to take some rides, and this is a perfect way. So they're kind of doing their own research before we met, and they're coming to our meeting with, this is what we have. Let's talk about it, and should we be expanding? That's one scenario. You also, during the research process, may be determining if your student needs to take an entrance exam. I know that sounds a little maybe unnerving at this point. Please don't be worried about it. Something we can talk to you about. And there's generally two types of exams that, if it's a big I, your student needs to take. Following that kind of determination, or not following, maybe even simultaneously, you'll also be touring, visiting, and interviewing at schools. This, again, the touring and the visiting could happen anywhere from the spring and the summer, but primarily those interviews do happen in the fall. Happy to say we're going to be adding that we love doing mock interviews with your kids. So that's another component we'll be talking about. And then that leads us into the later fall, where we're going to ask families that have a list. So you might be a family that knows, oh, we're headed to Carroll Upper School, or you might be a family that said, oh, I know I'm going to my child's going to their public school, and we're working through that process. Or you could be the family that has a list of schools. We're going to ask that you refine that list and share it with your secondary school advisor. by December 1st. We know this is fluid, and we even have a special sheet that you're going to fill out and provide to your secondary school advisor. So we're really going to be with you every step of the way. From that part of the process, you're going to be completing your applications through December, maybe into January. You may even have had a rolling application that you completed before December, but this is a roundabout timeline. Then you're going to have a little waiting period. That was that January time in the story that I was telling you about, where the family finished, and then they're like, this is what we're waiting for. March 10th, students who have applied to schools will receive decisions, and then you'll have the opportunity to attend revisit days. This is also a great time where if you're in the IEP process, you are having those review meetings with your schools, or you may even be having a shadow day for your student at the public school, maybe even at the technical school. And then in April, you'll be making a decision on which school is the best fit for your child. That was a lot. That's a big roadmap. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of time, but again, we are still working with our 8th and 9th grade families right now. And we will be doing the same for you through the entire year. And yeah, we are partners with you. This is it. You've got us tonight. This is it. We want to move on. Okay, what is the role of secondary school advising? There's some bullets I'm going to go over. The first one is developing a comprehensive understanding of your child. If I thought that this one bullet was going to be able to explain how we do this, shame on me. So we have a whole other slide to just talk about that, but I wanted to let you know that developing that understanding of who your child is really important to us, and that is our first and foremost goal for us to be doing for you. We are going to meet with you to discuss the schools to consider. You're going to be providing us some feedback on what your thoughts are. You might already, again, have somewhat of a plan, or you might have 3 kinds of things you want to be considering. So that's where we work together and can provide some insight into that for you. We're also going to be coordinating the submission of required materials for schools. And so what that will look like is, in terms of the full academic reports, it's going to be at least 2 years. And when I say at least, we have found over the last few years, more schools are requiring or requesting 3 years of school of academic records. So what that would mean for a student who just arrived in 7th grade is that, and a Carroll upper 8th grade student who just came in September, what that's going to mean is that in addition to the academic records, which will be the first term of the year you'll be matriculating, the year before, you'll want to reach out to your sending school or your prior school, sign a release, and let them know that you're going to have records sent to schools. We can talk to you about that. We will also be facilitating recommendations from Carroll. Most schools require 3 recommendations. On occasion, there's a 4th, and these are required ones. And these are specifically required by your Carroll school teacher. So your students' 8th grade teachers and your students' 9th grade teachers. All schools have their own recommendation forms. We want to let you know we have approved Carroll recommendation forms that we will be facilitating to your students' English teacher, math teacher, tutor if applicable, and then there's a character reference that serves as the principal/counselor recommendation, and we'll talk to you about that. So when you get to that component, just know, reach back out to us, and we'll let you know that we're taking care of it and how that's working. The other piece that we're going to be supporting families with is the transition to public, which again could mean that a student has an IEP, or the determination, will they have an IEP or a 504? And CC is going to be talking a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Something we love is we will be hosting events to help you learn and understand more about different opportunities at different types of schools. For instance, our benefits of boarding school. This is a fabulous evening where we have 4 to 5 admissions directors, professionals in admissions offices who are on a panel, and they come from different schools. And the idea is not to advertise their school, although it ultimately might happen a little bit. But the goal of the evening is to hear from these individuals on what are their signature programs, what sets them up, what is the difference that you will find at a boarding school versus a day school or a public school in your local area. What kind of support will they offer, and what does that programming look like? An example might be, what is that full day schedule look like for a student? How often do they see their families? Just what are the benefits? And something I want to add about this is that you might be listening to me right now and thinking, that is not for me. I'm not interested. I completely understand. Cece understands, Francie understands. But what I encourage you to do, looking into the fall when these will be scheduled, is please consider attending, even if it's something you don't think that's the kind of school your student will be going to, because we have heard back from multiple families that the takeaway, the tidbits, the information that they can provide can actually be translated into their search. So they might hear something about the type of programming that's offered and think, wow, although I'm not interested in a boarding school, wherever that might be, I love that type of programming. I think I'm going to ask or look for something similar in the kind of school that my child might be attending. Another event that we love is the parent alumni panel. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a parent who is tuned in this evening who is one of those alumni who may have been on our panel. But this is one of those events where we will have a Carroll parent alumni represented by each type of school that a student may be going to. So we'll have a family representing a student going to a public school, a parochial school, a technical school, a boarding school, day school. And essentially, they're going to share their story. They're going to share their story of their journey. And the journey is going to be about their journey that they share will look different for each person. And it isn't necessarily all going to be everything was wonderful. It's going to be the story of what was the process for them starting with right now. And there will be opportunities to ask questions. So you will have real answers in real time. And what we really love about this evening is that these parents were in your exact seat not that long ago. So who better to share that experience than those families? So we love that event. And then we also have independent school presentations that we started about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And what we like to do is during the course of the fall, invite independent local day schools once a week, potentially. We don't have the schedule secured yet. And it's an opportunity for that school that our families do entertain, for them to speak directly to Carroll families. So this is in addition to your tour, your interview, or your open house. This is by no means to replace that part of the process. But what this offers family is an opportunity for an admissions director and team potentially to speak to Carroll families. They know Carroll students. They will answer questions that you have about what it's like to go to school from your perspective. So it's a wonderful, wonderful series of events. We will be sending you information on when those will be. And again, we understand that we can't have these events when they suit everyone. So we do have them during the day because the other events are all in the evening, but we will do our best to have them recorded. Okay, what else in the role of secondary school advising? We will be providing additional support offered throughout the year in terms of SSAT and accommodations. So some of you may want to know, like, if I'm my students taking the SSAT, how do we go about receiving accommodations? I'm happy to report that we do have. I'm actually the designated approver to allow students to have accommodations. It's a very simple process. We have steps on our website that are very explicit and easy to follow in terms of having those standard accommodations. And when you get to that point and you're working with your secondary school advisor, have the conversation about the schools you're interested in and about the timing. And we will have the answers for all those pieces, but just know that we do offer that opportunity. We also, as I stated earlier, will offer the opportunity for a mock interview with your student. And it is something I feel comfortable speaking for all of us that we love. I think when I mentioned telling a story, I could probably go on and tell many stories about mock interviews, but not so much specific to the student, but how incredible your students will be. So this is another element of not surprise. We know your kids are amazing, but wait till we are able to give you some feedback on how they do with mock interviews. It's really remarkable. What else will we be doing? We will be publishing, so we have this that we're publishing monthly to-do lists. We will be providing checklists and information for you to stay on track. We are also in the process of updating and adjusting the website at Carroll. And so what we will be doing is updating and adjusting our information. And really what that means is we're going to be providing better and even more refined and to the point information to you. So you will be having communication from us. Do not worry. So you already will have, if you go to our website, a March through August timeline to-do list, and we'll be providing more information in August. And again, stay tuned. It'll be updated. Always helpful. Check the Thursday update for events, but we will also try and send reminders. So, as I mentioned earlier, something that we do is work to develop a deep understanding for your child and student. We spend time learning about your child. How do we do that? We are, as of tonight, we are devoted to that piece for the next 13 months. We will be spending time visiting your students' 7th grade and Carroll upper 8th grade classrooms. We feel very fortunate that the teachers, counselors, advisors, and coaches are our partners. They welcome us into their spaces, and we are observers. We get to see the kids at lunch. We'll be popping in, we'll be talking to them. So we really do work to know like what's happening right now. And we know that there's also a whole year of growth. We take a deep dive into Carroll data. We can thank Jen for much of that. And we have a team that is at our fingertips to help us extrapolate what that information, when there's growth and what that's looking like. And we learn from you and your child. So part of that parent questionnaire is understanding things that aren't necessarily obvious to all of us, but that it's important for you to share with us. And as we get to know your child, we'll be learning things along the way. So really that understanding isn't all about the academic piece. It's about what makes them tick. What are they interested in? And again, having a first-hand front row seat into the growth that's going to happen over the next year. It's really quite a privilege. We also want to understand what are their strengths and areas of need. And again, we'll be meeting with teachers to understand that. We have access to all of the information in terms of their academic records. We will be working to understand what level of support is needed at Carroll in terms of independence, use of strategies, active learning, confidence, maturity, and then again, the outside interests. So I know I did a lot of talking, and thank you all for your patience. I should have said that from the beginning. So let's see, do we have any questions? So I do see, the 2 questions. So how often or two that I see right this second, how often are neuropsychs needed? A question about timeline. So we are going to be going over that. But what I would say is if it was done over 2 years ago, you will want to consider having that updated. And in some cases, we'll need to have that updated. And in terms of a documented timeline, I'm happy to say that we do have the March to August timeline, and we will be providing a more specific timeline and more documents that can keep you on track. And again, everyone has a different way that they move along in this process. And we want to make sure that whether it's the email communication, the direct phone conversations with your secondary school advisor, the events we're offering, but also like, what are your next steps as a parent? And so are there any other questions? Could someone else check? And Cece, did you have any questions?
I think that's the questions for now. So
Okay, well, I did see one. Oh, it was a question about exploring multiple like options of schools in terms of like their support for their child. So if a student is thinking that they have their student needs a certain type of support, what does that mean for high school? So what I'm going to say, Cece is actually going to take on the next part of the presentation, which highlights high school options and support. So this is perfect. And in short, I will add that we do have families that straddle and students that will straddle two, different areas of support, because each school that they might be entertaining looks a little bit different, and there's growth that happens over the year. So thank you all for your patience and listening. I will be back. And Cece's going to again take on this next section, and then she's going to hand it over to Francie, who's going to give us some highlights on Carroll Upper School.
So thank you, Charlene. That question is the perfect segue to looking at high school options. So public, private religious, parochial day, private day, and private boarding. So your public is your city or town public system, your tech, Voc, or Aggie or charter. The Voc, Tech, and Aggie is if you are a subscribing town, and we can talk about that once we get a chance to have a meeting. Private, religious, and parochial would be like Catholic Memorial, Gann Academy, Arlington Catholic. There are a number of them, and they do a great job. We have lots of kids who go to those schools, and they just love them. Private day are what you'd expect, including Landmark up in Beverly. Our kids love it. They have a great time. The view from the dining hall is amazing, I have to say. The food is good too. Lawrence Academy, Chapel Hill Chauncey Hall, Brimmer and May, Beaver Country Day over there next to Brimmer and May. And then private boarding, Cushing Academy out in Ashburnham, Brewster Academy up north in New Hampshire, New Hampton, Pomfret School. Landmark is also boarding. It's really a great idea to think about the boarding schools and take a trip and see what they have to offer. So within all the types of schools, there are levels of support. So we here in secondary school advising, we break it down into 3 different buckets. Within the buckets, there are definitely differences in programming and differences in the level of support. So within comprehensive support, which is Carroll-esque in nature, it's going to be delivered differently and feel different. So that's why we'll, when you go to see the schools and begin to understand the programming, and then you'll have a chance to talk it through with your advisor, you'll start to understand how that works. It's the same for the integrated moderate schools and the schools that have minimal support. So a comprehensive support school is a school that could provide continued remedial support. They offer similar types of support as Carroll. They may have tutorials, one-on-one tutorials or small group tutorials, structured writing programs. Direct and explicit is very often language that they'll use when describing their program. Some of them will provide a modified curriculum. So you're going to want to wrap your head around some of this vocabulary and understand what modified curriculum is versus accommodations. Some of the schools that our kids love are Landmark School, Eagle Hill School, the Gow School, Wheeler, Wolf Academy, and Foreman School. Integrated and moderate these are schools that may provide an academic support class that is built into the schedule, right into the day, that can address a number of different things: executive functioning, skills, strategies, and those skills and strategies will get tackled with content, but it's not necessarily a content specific support block. The schools will provide accommodations generally, but there won't be modifications in curriculum. So in terms of a language waiver, that's for the foreign language. Some of them will accept a foreign language. And then there are also ways to manage the foreign language where maybe a student doesn't take the foreign language the first year, just wait until the sophomore year. And just to let you know, most of our kids graduate, they take the foreign language, they love it, and they do really well. So not to worry. Chapel Hill, Chauncey Hall, Proctor Academy, Winchendon School, Arlington Catholic, and Brewster. Our minimal support schools, they may provide some support in form of peer tutoring, drop-in learning centers. You can make appointments. You can the student can build a relationship with the academic support people. It could be a team, could be just a few people. The independence of the student and the willingness to engage is really the big key here. The academic support teams at minimal support schools will encourage and help your student to work with their content teachers and do those check-ins if there are office hours, if there's time before or after school, during lunch, to go and ask questions, check in before a test, maybe brainstorm a paper, get some help on a draft. The language waiver is not always available. It's always a good question to talk about. Beaver Country Day, Brimmer and May, Thayer Academy, and Dana Hall are some of the popular minimal support schools. For our great public schools, that it's all depends on the district and what the programming is that's offered. And we here in secondary school advising will help walk you through that and talk you through it. The diagnosis on the neuropsychological report, the strength of the IEP or the 504 plan, which we'll talk about in a minute, and the courses offered. That's all going to fold into what is arguably a really good program at almost all of our public schools. We have lots of kids who love their public schools and go back to them, go back to their hometowns. And yeah, so we can talk about it. Great. So this is an information dense slide with the IEP versus the 504. So I won't go over all the information in there. Just know that this slide is going to be available on the website once we put the recording up. And Francie and Charlene and I are, of course, available to talk to you about IEP 504 and getting together with your school district to determine which is the most appropriate for your student. Oh, and now it's time for Francie and the Carroll Upper School.
Here we go. And we had a question that came in that said, for those who came in 7th grade, is staying through 9th grade an option? And I want to say, yes, it is. And welcome to Carroll Upper. So Carroll Upper School essentially is a year of high school. So you're looking at that 9th grade year with Carroll support and skill building, which will focus on independence, executive function, strategies, self-advocacy, grit, and a growth mindset. We do have, robust courses that are offered. It is high school, and sometimes the kids, our students, kind of think they're still in middle school, but then all of a sudden they get the workload and all of the pieces together, and they realize they really are in a high school. So we do have robust courses that include geometry or algebra, depending on the math level of your child. English literature and composition, conceptual physics, world civilization. If Orton Gillingham or OG tutoring is needed, we can provide that, but otherwise they usually are in a focus block to work on anything that's needed for support on those specific things. Could be math, could be ELA writing, and we do emphasize on the writing skills. Essentially, Carroll Upper School is an extra year for your child to grow and take academic risks and be challenged in a supportive environment. So it's a great consideration. Does anyone have any questions perhaps about Carroll Upper or anything going on? I think we had one other question, Charlene, that asked about Landmark being a 766 state approved school and not private.
So I'm happy to answer that. So Landmark is a private school. It is a private school that happens to be 766 state approved, which means that the opportunity to be supported by a school district is there. However, it is an independent school, and most 766 schools are independent schools that, again, will partner with the district to support the family. So I hope that answers the question. If someone wants to add anything to that, feel free. And also when you receive the information from your secondary school advisor, you can have a more in-depth conversation if you have questions, for sure. There was another question that had come in about teachers having enough time in the fall with my students to provide feedback. And I will give, my answer in response to the experience I have. And again, feel free, Francie and Cece, to jump in. One of the things when we are facilitating recommendations, and your new teachers in the fall are getting to know your students, we're kind of all doing this together, which is exciting. So it is amazing what happens from September to December. And one of the reasons we facilitate the recommendations is that we want to make sure we are giving the teachers, your students' teachers, enough time to get to know your students, and also feeling that they have enough time to, again, write these beautiful, thoughtful, and intentional recommendations that are based on understanding who your student is. And what we love is, we get to go into these classrooms in the fall, and then we get to hear what's happened after the holiday break, what's happened in January and February, when we hear about even continued growth and continued, going from writing a 3-paragraph essay to a 5-paragraph essay, or learning to take split page notes and all of these things. So the answer is, it's incredible to see how well the teachers get to know your students. And yes, we give them time, and it takes time, but that's why we feel very fortunate that we are partners with them. Did you want to offer anything else either?
We had a question. I didn't want to offer anything else. Sorry.
No.
I just wanted to, I think there's a lot of people asking a little bit about about Carroll Upper. First was size. So currently we have 56 students in Carroll Upper, which makes up of our new 8th grade and our 9th grade class. They also asked about how often do students do a year of Carroll Upper? I guess statistically, I would not know necessarily, Charlene, but we have generally, I would say, anywhere from 7 to 11 students perhaps per year. I think that's about right.
Yeah, and I would add that it does vary from class to class, and I think our largest was 15. So it does vary from year to year. And so I would say it's always a desirable option, and how that ends up in the end, like coming to fruition for a family and student, does vary from year to year.
I think there were a lot of questions as well as do a lot of students who attend 9th grade at Carroll end up reclassing. There are some who will reclass for a variety of reasons. Again, that's something that we would work out with each family, and with your student. There are some families whose children may be on the young end and they would like their child to reclass for that reason. There are some families who choose to reclass because of sports, and they want that, 4 years of playing a sport. So I think the reasons, it's an individual journey, and the reasons do vary with variety of families. But it is something that some students do, and then some don't at all. And then they go and they just apply straight away to 10th grade.
I'm seeing a few questions about support at our Voc Tech schools. So I thought I would check in on that. So does an agricultural school have moderate support? Once again, that's school dependent. So if you're interested in a Voc Tech or Aggie school, we can talk you through that. And the programs sometimes change. There's support added, and sometimes they just sort of change it or refine it. Some of the Voc Tech schools we do find have integrated support into the day. There are study skill classes, reading classes, writing specific classes. So yeah, it depends on the school. And then the next question, what type of SPED support is at the trade schools? Are they consistent across the trade schools? The answer is the same. The support is dependent upon the school, just like in the private schools, how they approach it and what is on offer. And consistent, I would say not consistent, but available. And once again, this will harken back to your IEP or your 504 plan. So we can talk about that. We love our Voc Tech Aggie schools, and we find that they partner very well with our families, and we have plenty of information to offer to help make sure the students are successful and have a great experience. Oh, here's one. Tests and multiple choice or otherwise are somewhat foreign to Carroll students. Do we offer any preparation or education for our Carroll kids? You want to take that, Charlene?
So we don't have formal test prep education, if you will, available. If your student, in terms of taking the SSAT or HSPT, which is the test typically taken by parochial schools, the opportunity to have free practice tests through ssat.org is available. Certainly the opportunity to work with a tutor is available, but that's really family dependent. I would say this is something that you would want to just discuss with your secondary school advisor, what your approach would be. What I will tell you, it's specific to standardized tests with regards to these entrance exams, it's been fluctuating tremendously over the years. And this may even be one of the frequently asked questions, but essentially, there was a time years ago where I would say 2/3 of the school students were looking at would require this. And then fast forward, it became a very minimal amount. And now we're seeing a little bit of an adjustment in the other direction. So to offer a test prep where it's been a very low percentage of schools requiring it. And there are some schools, I will say, and this is where you really want to be good about, like, diligent on when you're looking at schools, reading those admission pages on what's the requirement, and then talking with your secondary school advisor. There are some schools that require it, but then they will write, in lieu of SSAT testing, you may submit a neuropsych updated testing, updated neuropsych report, or and a writing sample. So I know I got off topic on your answer, your question about the standardized test prep. We do not have standardized test prep, but we can talk about what that means for your child in terms of taking a standardized test. I think I actually saw another question too related to Carroll Upper, which was, can any student at Carroll attend, or any student invited based on need? So what is wonderful about Carroll Upper is that the small community that is an extension of Carroll Middle School, however, a ninth grade approved program, is that they are able to support, like Carroll Middle School, a variety of support in terms of needs. So the student that requires minimal support and the student that requires still is in need and benefits from comprehensive support. So in short, the answer to that is to talk with your secondary school advisor about that being an option and have a discussion about what are the steps to go through. And most likely you will be in contact with Francie and the head of Carroll Upper School to have a discussion if this is the right fit for your student and what does it look like for your student. So it's not a one easy answer. It is based on a discussion. Where are you in your family? Where's your child's educational journey heading? And what are they going to benefit for because of maybe there's something they're looking for in the future where a year at Carroll Upper is going to launch them into that space. So the answer is that it's open as an option to entertain for all the students. The end result is really a big discussion and more part of the journey for you. Francie, if you want to add something that I maybe missed.
No, I think you got it all. I do think that somebody had asked if you have to apply to Carroll Upper or can you just continue? And there actually is an application. You do have, your child will have an interview. They'll sit down and meet with Kate Collins, our division director. And so there is a pathway to apply to Carroll Upper, but we understand that, you are our family already. And so it's just continuing the journey and making sure that that's the best fit for your family and your student.
Great. Thank you. Oh, the only other thing is I will say there is a capacity. So the school does have, it does get full. So there is that piece where, but again, discussion. So I think if there's not any more questions at the moment, we can actually, we actually are doing great.
Actually, I think there is
wait, we've got more.
Another question. How much contact will a family have with their secondary school advisor? How often will I talk to them? How does this work with the contact via phone, meets, emails?
Okay. So here's the thing. I gave you, I feel like I gave some work in the beginning, right? I said, I want you to be open to surprises. The other piece I want you to walk away from this evening is that the word partner. We are your partner for the next year and beyond, essentially. So when I say partner, it means that what is going to work for your family, we are going to work with you to make sure that you feel supported. So if you are a family who prefers to, correspond via email and that works for you, great. If you need to pick up the phone because you need to call one of us and because something's come to mind and a phone call is easier sometimes than a full email, pick up the phone or let's schedule a time. So essentially we are here for you to support you and to take any amount of stress that might be associated with the next year in this process. And if we can take even just a little bit off for you, that's what we're here for. So that communication is appropriately, we are appropriately here for you. So if someone wants to add to that, but my feeling is we're going to work with you on what's best for your family. So in terms of like standard communication, you're going to hear from us shortly. We're going to start the process and then it's going to be like, what do you need? Let's check in or, have a great summer. If something comes up, reach out and, after that piece, and then we're going to kick off the year. We're going to have events. There might be feedback. There's going to be visits. We want to hear from you on how things are going. Because if we don't know what you're doing, we won't know how to support you. So I want to add that you will hear from us and we will hear from you as much as you'd like.
Charlene, there's a question asking, is an educational counselor or consultant recommended or not necessary because we know their kids best and can suggest and support them as needed? So they're asking about the consultant.
Great question. So I would say we don't ever say that you should right away get a consultant off the top of my head, I wouldn't say everybody should go out and have a consultant. We are a support system, an extension and a support system at Carroll offered to you. If you are a family with an unusual situation and you feel that there is an advocate or an educational consultant that would also be beneficial, who has an understanding above and beyond, you have a situation that would be helpful, absolutely look into that. What I would say is we have had families who have utilized private consultants, and we welcome the opportunity to partner with them as well. So we are here for you. And if for you means working with a consultant is going to help your journey, and that's something you want to do, please don't feel that you can't share that that's what you're doing. And if anything, put them in contact with us so that we can, again, make sure that together we are supporting you as best as possible. So it's not a matter of, are we enough? It's like, what do you need? So if that's something that you need, we're happy to partner right alongside that person. Does anybody want to offer anything that I might have missed on that point? And I hope I answered the question for what they were asking.
I
If
think
you
that
did.
sounds just about right. I'm gonna throw out a question to both either Francie or Charlene. I know we love this question. How many schools does a student typically apply to? Okay, go.
All right, so I took a deep breath because it's the mystery question. So and I don't want to make anyone feel unnerved by saying a certain number. So here's the thing, you might start off with a list that could be, I'm just going to throw it, doesn't mean yes, you could have 7 schools and by the end you have 3 schools you feel really good about, and that's great for you and your family. You might have a situation where you're really interested in day schools and then you're broadening your horizons into the boarding school world. So you're adding on more schools. So I would say it's really family dependent. But I would love to have somebody else weigh in on this, but there is no average. There is no magic number. And with an abundance of applications, that's a lot of visits, that's a lot of interviews, and that's a lot of applications. So I would say talk about what that looks like in the terms of that refined list, but please feel free, CC or Francie, to add.
I like your answer, Charlene, and I think it harkens back to what you had said earlier, that we start out with communication and then it's an individual partnership. So that will evolve over time. I think Francie would probably agree. So
I do agree. I think, even in looking at my students this year, we've had some students who literally applied to 1 school and then a few or some that applied to 9 schools. Again, it depends on the journey that you want to take with your child, and also how many applications and essays and all of those things. There's, a lot of factors that will come into this when you narrow down your list.
I see there is a question on, if you don't know next steps because it's your first year, how do we start a list to visit in the spring? And this is where you're meeting with your you fill out your parent questionnaire, and there is a question about, are there any schools of interest? If you don't have any schools that you're interested in or you don't know, that's okay to have that you don't know. Or you could say, I'm interested in this, but I'm not really sure if it's the right fit. And we just start by having a discussion, and together we can come up with a place to start. And that's kind of the start of the journey. And that's why when we had that roadmap where everybody's in a different place, we have some families who don't know where to start in that field. And we have some families who maybe they have a sibling that's gone and they have an idea of where they're thinking. So I think that it's okay. And that's why we're here for you. So a meeting with us will help get that started.
Charlene, there's a question here. Is there a place online to review resources in schools which Carroll kids have gone to?
Well, resources regarding the schools, or is it, so as for schools our kids have gone to, we do have a list of schools that our students have gone to over the last few years. And we will actually be updating that, just so you know. So yes, you can see where some of our Carroll students have gone. And then, yes, we also have resources. I think this is what you're asking in terms of ASNE. We have a bunch of different private school, boarding school, local parochial school links that offer information where you can search for schools. And you can't, so you can look at a school that maybe one of our students has gone to by looking at that list, and then you can search for the school and get information. We don't have specifically information on the schools, like a template on the schools, but we can provide resources for you to learn about them. Is that what the question was, Francie?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I hope that
I think
answers that.
I think that was the question, but also it goes back to the relationship in the meetings. We're more than happy to talk about the schools and review them, answer your questions, and help you navigate some of those visits, help you navigate some of the websites, and get past some of the marketing, which is great, and enjoy that part of it, but also get to some of the heart of the matter. So that's always a really fulfilling part of what we do. So
Thank you for adding that, Cece. All right, should we jump on to some of the other frequently asked questions? Although I think we tapped into quite a bit, which was great. All right, so, oh, I think we've touched upon a little bit of this. Who is my secondary school advisor? So Francie, lucky rising ninth grade students, will be working with Francie at the upper school. And what I can say about all three of us is that although Francie is at the Wayland campus and Cece and I are in the primarily housed on the Lincoln campus, we are truly a team. And I can say that from my heart, that we are communicating, we are collaborating, we are harnessing each other's strengths and look to each other in support. So know that you will, again, Francie, will be working with the ninth graders, the rising ninth graders, the seventh graders, families. Students will be receiving the families a letter, an email shortly in the upcoming weeks, letting you know who you'll be working with. But please know that although you have an assigned secondary school advisor, and that will be kind of your conduit to the department, we are a team. So I hope that answers your question. Do I need to supply information to secondary school advising prior to the meeting? Yes. So we've talked about this a couple of times. You'll be receiving a parent questionnaire that is specific to you in the email. So the email you'll be receiving, you will have a parent questionnaire attached or shared for you to fill out and then email back to us. And when you email that back, there's also a space for you to indicate, your timeline on interest in having a meeting. We will do the best we can with like meeting with you in the timeline that you're interested in, but we'll have a conversation and work with you on setting up a date, all of those things. Oh, and provide new testing. So if you've had testing done recently, so in addition to the parent questionnaire, it would be great. So there are families who have had recent testing and it may have slipped their mind to share it with Carroll. So if you haven't already shared it with Mary Texera, our incredible registrar, please share it with us with your parent questionnaire, and we will make sure that not only will we have it, but Mary Texera, our registrar, will be able to upload it to your child's secure Aspen folder for her teaching team's review as well. Really important. I think we somewhat answered this. When should I meet with the secondary school, with secondary school advising? Again, upon receipt of the parent questionnaire, your advisor will reach out to you, schedule a meeting. It will could go anywhere between April and June if you're interested in a spring meeting, or start beginning, a few weeks after we start school in the fall for those interested in a fall meeting. And yeah, so again, there will be space for you, and there's no should. So in terms of like there being like a best practice. I can assure you, we have families that met with us in September who are in the same space as the families that met with us in April. So the same support is given to all families, whether that meeting happens in the fall or in the spring. And should I schedule new testing? I'm just going to kind of read what this says. And if anyone has any questions, we have, two other colleagues here that can speak quite eloquently on this subject matter, but please discuss this with your secondary school advisor if you have a question. If your child's test, this is a great example, was completed prior to August of 2022, it will be 2.5 years young in when it's time for admissions review. So you might be thinking even right now, wow, so I just had my test. It feels like I just had it done and it was the beginning of 6th grade. And now when you think about a whole year from now, when your student is going to be having, or 5th grade, having an admissions person or their learning support person review the testing, your student has grown significantly, maybe entered Carroll, has some new strategies, like lots of things could have changed. So think about a year from now, what that's going to look like. So in terms of, is this a representation of my child?
Hey, Charlene, somebody asked, do we have a list or do we provide a list of doctors for testing?
Okay, we do have some resources for certain. We do have a list of resources that we can provide. It's not something that we recommend. So we don't recommend providers. We don't have certain people that we say, they're connected to Carroll, but we do have a list of resources, and please reach out when you receive your email or after this, and we're happy to provide that for you.
And then somebody asked, Carroll does so much testing on the students. Can any of this information be shared with schools instead of a neuropsych?
It is not shared with schools instead of a neuropsych. We do a tremendous amount of tracking of progress. And what's great about that information is that we have access to that. And so the teachers are able to speak to that in the students' recommendations. And we are able to understand a student. So if we are offered the opportunity, or we always offer the opportunity to extend information or explain something, we're able to do that. But to supply Carroll testing is not a practice. Trust me when I tell you, schools will be receiving a tremendous amount of information from Carroll, and the feedback is they feel they know the students very well following an application file when they're reading the application file, because the in-depth academic records, if you look at all those drop downs, they're answering much of the questions that they're looking for. What is the student's writing? How are they doing in math? And there's like eight drop downs that they're reporting on in each subject area, but that also goes down into the student skills. So I know I'm kind of going on, but essentially you're in addition to the neuropsych testing, which is another component for them to understand your child's test profile, with the Carroll information, we have found that over the years that is completely sufficient.
And then, do you recommend private neuropsych testing over public school testing?
That is really up to the family. So we are fortunate to live in a wonderful state with wonderful school districts, and certainly people have had their testing done through their district and have been very pleased. We have also found that families feel like they have a relationship or have had their student tested privately and feel like that is a better representation for them. I think there's also an economic piece, a financial piece. And again, so we would never say you have to do it a certain way, because you have to do what's best for your family. But we have found that we probably have families using both across the board. Would you not say that, Cece and Francie, in terms of the testing being supplied?
Absolutely. Whether they're applying to private school, even using a public school testing.
Yep.
Absolutely fine.
I agree. And it goes back to the relationship, the conversation with your secondary school advisor.
Yeah. And something else to think about, if you're also paralleling your research of your district along with entertaining some independent schools, your district will need to do testing with your student. So parents will often weigh that, like say, oh, well, if my school is doing the testing and we're doing both, I will utilize that as long as it falls in the right timeline. The other piece to consider is if you do have independent testing and you're also looking at your public school and they need to decide eligibility for your student, they will often require additional testing that goes along with what you've provided for independent testing. So again, have a conversation with your secondary school advisor about what you're thinking, what your plans are. And again, there's no wrong answer. So let me just tell you that. I think it's independent for the family. And we've had families provide both this year across the board, like, 50-50, or some have had both done because it's just the way it happened. Oh, where did I leave off? Let's see. Oh, different types of application methods. What are the different types? So high school application methods vary. It's important for you to review the websites and talk to your secondary school advisor. If you're looking at applications for most independent schools, you want to, when I say talk to your secondary school advisor, in most cases, we are privy to what their method is. However, some schools may offer multiple choices of how to apply. So that leads into the next question, which is, what is the difference between the standard application online and Ravenna? You all applied through Ravenna, I believe, to come to Carroll, which is a very well-known and popular application vehicle. The other is the standard application online. What the big difference is, they're both used by a number of schools. Applicants are able to submit most of their information once and then apply to any of the schools that use the SAO. So it's almost like the Common App when you think about it for college. So you put in your information and the same essays, the same all of your personal information, your kids' information, then their prompts for their essays are all the same. And then you add in the schools. Not all schools offer this, so you have to make sure that if you can use the SAO, terrific, but the other option might be Ravenna, where with Ravenna, you can put in all your information once, but then you might have to do some different components for each school. But please look carefully at what they prefer. And if you have a question, talk to your secondary school advisor. Does my child need to take an entrance exam? We touched upon this earlier. Not all high schools require an entrance exam. So please check with your secondary school advisor and look on the admissions page. There is a lot of changes happening right now. So as of today, we could give you, if you asked us about a school in the area, we could most likely give you the answer of how it is now. Generally, changes that happen in August in terms of that's when the new testing rolls out. And that's when oftentimes schools are making adjustments. So please check. And then that's the SSAT. The HSPT, I will say, which is used for parochial school admissions, for the most part, is required. There is an occasional school that will waive that. The HSPT, which is the high school placement test, is known to be, if the option is there, maybe a little bit of a gentler test than the SSAT, but they're not always offered as like simultaneous options. So again, applying to a parochial school, if you're only applying to a parochial school, you may be taking the HSPT, but if you're applying to a parochial school and a school that requires the SSAT, maybe just take the SSAT and send it to both. Again, that sounds very confusing. It even sounded confusing to me. So I would say, talk to your secondary school advisor on that, but we can help guide you as you're thinking about schools. I'm going to jump ahead because I don't know if this is one of the questions, but it might be, one of the questions might be, when do you take that test? And so I would say, make sure when you're looking at a school that if you know you want to apply to a certain school and it says this is required, check in with us, but it will also usually give you a link to sign up for the test, and it gives you dates to choose from. Generally, all that testing is done in the fall. So don't worry about it right now. And in terms of signing up, the directions are on Carroll's website, and you can also find information on ssat.org. And then in terms of accommodations for the SSAT, we have a section devoted to accommodations. And again, very explicit instructions on how to sign up. The SSAT launches their testing for the new year in August. So if you are interested in signing up for that, I would wait till August to sign up unless you were doing a practice test this spring, just to see, because the new testing period starts August 1st. And then who sends the scores? The parents send the SSAT scores to the high schools through the SSAT website. If your student is taking the test more than once, even if they're not taking it more than once, I would consider waiting until you review the scores to send them. There's no penalty in waiting. Sending them early is great, but as long as they receive them by the deadline, that's fine. So I would say wait, take a review, make sure that's still the school you're going to be applying to. If you decide to take them again, which score is going to be, more preferable in your eyes, and then submit the score that you're interested in. When does my child write their essay? You may begin brainstorming their essays. They can begin brainstorming at any time once they have access to the prompts. So essentially what that means, if you have a student that is interested in applying to certain schools, start looking into those schools. And if you log in and start a profile, you'll be able to get the prompts for them. And then again, the SAO, because they're like a common app. Many schools use them. They haven't changed the prompts in quite a few years, but we don't want to be surprised by that. So you definitely want to log in and make sure you have those. Actually, I've done so much talking. I'm going to say, would Francie or Cece like to take the next one? When visiting a school, what questions should I ask or consider to assess the school?
I think Francie is the perfect person to answer that question.
Well, I mean, I always have a list and things like that. My students and your students will actually probably have a list of questions that they want to focus on. I think that you're really looking at the environment. You're looking at a community that you want to be a part of, that you want your child to be a part of, because your child will be at school, and oftentimes, you want to know that you're involved. Does that community, is that a place that would welcome your family? Is it a place that fits your child's needs and will work towards fulfilling their goals? Does it have enough support? Will it challenge them to get to their next level? Because the high school is not the end of the road for our kids. And do you see your child being happy there? I think you just need to take a look at what is the school's mission. What do they stand for? Is that something that you and your family agree with and that you want to be involved in? And we have this, is there anything else I forgot on that one, Cece or Charlene?
I think that was great.
Okay.
It was great.
All right. So current landscape. Well, there has been a rise in the applications across the board this year. I think that was the number one thing that we heard from many admissions offices. Area parochial school have absorbed the students at schools that have closed. That's no surprise to anyone. So getting into parochial schools has been a little harder. I will say on my end, working with the current 9th graders, when you apply to some of these parochial schools, you are considered a transfer student, and that has had a different timetable this year for notification for my 9th graders. So those going into 10th grade. So it's a little bit different on the timetable, and it's been a little bit harder just because of the numbers. It's a business model shift, and I think the old way of doing it was that they would have a small sort of 9th grade class that they would bring in, and oftentimes they would double the class size in 10th grade so that you have a lot more points of entry in that 10th grade. And nowadays they are really filling to max capacity in that 9th grade year, some schools. And so it has less spots for students applying for 10th grade. Not all schools have gone that model, so don't panic. We will work with you with regards to, who has, but it's something to consider when if your child's applying to 10th grade, about particularly sort of spots. And that's something that you might want to talk to the school about. Would you consider reclassing or repeating 9th grade? So that's something that we will work through. There's a great question that we had. I just want to go back to it. To what extent can my student be involved in the conversations with our secondary school advisors? And I love talking to the kids and having them be a part of the conversation. I know that Charlene and Cece do as well. I would say, though, that the initial conversation that we have after you submit your parent questionnaire is usually done with your advisor and just the parents alone. That's an initial sort of conversation just to make sure that we're on the same page, that we know and understand what your concerns are, that we're looking holistically at your child. So we don't have them necessarily present for that meeting, I would say, but oftentimes what I find in my experience has been, I've had a lot of communication with your students with regards to maybe thinking about their essay piece, or brainstorming with them, or on the mock interviews, or if they have questions, and they want to tell us about how a visit might have gone and things like that. So they do have a lot of voice, and we certainly communicate back and forth. It doesn't mean that they would necessarily be sitting in on a meeting. You've got to think we're not pulling your student out of any academic classes in order to meet, to have your student present when we might be meeting with you, whether it's in person or via Google Meet. So I would say that the students definitely have a voice. They just may not be present in every meeting because I cannot take them out of school.
That is right, Francie. There was another great question. Can we have a more we have a more complete classification of schools in terms of levels of support to offer? And the answer is yes. So when you meet with your secondary school advisor, there'll be an opportunity to talk about levels of support. What does that mean? And then also there'll be a list of schools that fall into those buckets that CC again gave such great information on, and we can give you more context of the nuances on that. It would be so easy to say, oh, all these schools fit into this nice place, and we do that, but we want to be able to have you understand that it isn't as within those levels of support, there's also variation. And so yes, we'll be able to provide something to you and also have a discussion about it.
Well, and to that point, I think it's important to remember that we are in constant contact and communication with the schools, and we're out visiting the schools, checking with the academic support people, the teams, the admissions people, maybe even having a chance to talk to some teachers. So updating that information, and as Charlene said, providing context and nuance to you as we're having these individual conversations is really helpful. And I think as well, the webinars, when the schools present, that provides a lot of information directly about their academic support, their programming, and how it suits directly our Carroll community. So all of that's coming and available.
Thank you. I think we are getting so close to the end. Oh my goodness. I think we're ready to move on to what is just about here, the last of it. What is my first move? Okay, so your first move was being here tonight. Thank you again. Bookmark the secondary school advising tab on Carroll's website, which can be found under student life and the community pages. Upon receipt of the parent questionnaire, you may return it to your secondary school advisor. Please know that although we are talking about the parent questionnaire, there is no sense of urgency. You take your time. Please do what's right for you. Do not feel that this has to be returned at a certain time. Yes, if you're interested in a spring meeting, we need it in the spring, and if you're interested in a fall meeting at some point, letting us know, that is great, but don't feel pressured by this. So we want this, again, we want to take some stress off of you. The information you give us is hugely helpful. Just take your time filling it out, and we love to hear as much as we can about your student from your perspective. Set up a meeting with us, so giving us that information so we can reach out and coordinate something. Please trust the process. There's thousands, I think, at this point, of students that have gone through this process with us specifically. So trust the process, please. And yeah, that is our big motto. But I also, I know I kind of emphasized a couple of words, and I think in closing, I want to kind of go back to be open to the surprise. We hope as a team that you enjoyed this evening's presentation. We hope that you feel informed and supported. We expect to be providing you resources that you will find very helpful as you navigate this journey. And I guess the parting thought and word I'd like to leave you with is partnership. And that we are here to partner alongside your journey, your and your child's journey. And so we are an extension of that for you, to help and guide you and talk about things and work through things, and again, just be right along the ride for the whole year. So thank you. Thank you again for taking time out of your evening. We know how time is not easy traveling to and from Carroll and all the things in life. So thank you very much on behalf of Secondary School Advising, and have a wonderful evening. And we look forward to getting to know you and your child